I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of the AU Review, which the recently rebranded logo you can see above me. We celebrated our 5th birthday this year and run a bunch of events, and this is what we were using on the tote bags, a little hashtag and all that fun stuff. Today I'm going to be talking about a little bit about what I do and why I do it, and leading to a bit of a story about traveling around India this time last year. I was invited by a joint effort of the Australian and Indian governments. You may remember that there was some bad blood between Australia and India a couple of years ago, racial bashings, great PR for Australia. And so the response from the then government was to set up an artistic response. And what came out of that was a series of events in India that, in last year, over a three or 4 month period, that celebrated the non-racist part of Australia. So the creative arts. And in a sense, it's a weird sort of thing, because in a sense they were using kind of musicians and comedians to kind of make everyone happier about the relationship, and I think everyone was feeling a bit strange about it. But the experience that I had on the music side of things was an incredible one, and basically I was invited there as the official music journalist of Australia. Which to me is pretty ridiculous, because obviously there are plenty of people who are much more well vetted in the rock music journalism scene in Australia than I am. But I guess I'll give you a little bit of insight into perhaps why I was asked. So here we have a very blurry shot of myself interviewing Tim Rogers. That's me being a rock journalist in Australia. I'm the sort of person that kind of says yes to things. I was invited 24 hours before this photo was taken to go up in the Red Bull stunt planes with a band called Blue Juice, and I just couldn't say no to it. Never going to do anything like that again. The sick bag was not empty on the way down, but an amazing experience, and the sort of thing that sort of represents the sort of person I am, in that I generally say yes to things. The story sort of starts a couple of years ago. That's me with a combi called Daisy. I got a phone call from a representative of Tourism New South Wales, and I was asked to basically travel around New South Wales and represent the music world as their blogger. This came about from a personal relationship within that community, and she was I was the person that she thought of for this project. So this is the first time that the government reached out to me and had me do something. They were really happy with the results of that, and basically how I got from here to here, which is at a music festival in India, is pretty overwhelming. But this is a festival in India called the NH7 Weekender. It's put on by a company called Only Much Louder. They are basically a company. They're a company that's run by 20-year-olds, and it's late 20-year-olds, but still, it's a group of under 30s who are running the kind of contemporary music scene in India, and this is, without any hyperbole or any exaggeration, one of the best festivals I've ever been to. So well run, one of the most beautiful sights I've ever seen. And this is in the middle of India. I mean, you go outside the festival site and you see people shitting on the streets. It was an incredible divide, but this burgeoning middle class in India, who are growing up now with, instead of just what their parents are telling them to listen to, they're growing up with what the internet's telling them to listen to, and they're suddenly getting involved in contemporary music, contemporary Western music, I should say. And this creates some interesting opportunities for Australian bands. So I go back to the issue that we had with relations with India, with these festivals going on. it was a natural fit for Australia to send a few bands along. And the headliners of this band were a band from Australia, from Perth, called Carnival. And it turns out that Carnival not only played this festival, but they headlined the festival. Metal in India, Western metal, Indian metal, doesn't matter where it's from, is huge. The electronic dance music scene is huge. Everything in between is still kind of up and coming, and they're still working it out. But these two markets are absolutely huge. And at this festival, which they call the happiest little festival in India, or something to that extent, had Carnival headlining. And I have never seen so many shirtless Indians in one room chanting every song. It was unbelievable. This Australian band from Perth. And that just shows you the power of the internet and the power that market has. And so last year marked the first year that this Australian Odyssey happened. There's a thing called the Aussie Barbecue. It happens at South by Southwest, which is a big music conference in Austin, Texas. It happens at CMJ in New York. It happens in the Great Escape in London. And it was at the Great Escape in London where I first met Anuj, who works for Only Much Louder, who run NH7 Weekend. I kept in touch, basically, and through a series of events, I got a phone call and was asked to go along to this event. So, so again, that's me after jumping out of a plane from the when I travelled around New South Wales. This is earlier last year when I was part of an Australian initiative called Generate. And
pick the odd one out.
What's that? Sorry?
Pick the odd one out.
I know, right? And so, you know, Simon Cream, to his credit, was very, very much behind local music, and much of this program was about providing financial grants to Australian companies like my own, and that was really the start of this journey for me. We celebrated our 4th birthday of the website not too much later, and it just seemed like everything kind of fell into place that allowed me to go to India, and the government paid for me to go. I was looked after in 5-star hotels and chauffeured cars, and it was a pretty incredible way to be treated, and it was because it was a totally government initiative. We were there with Simon Crean and with all the delegates from the Australian government, and it was quite a strange experience, to say the least. We as I said, we had chauffeurs, but you know, they never knew where they were going, and as much as we were staying in really nice hotels, for the most part it was just like a normal tour. I was with 5 Australian bands, Carnival, who as I mentioned, huge in India. This was a poster that a fan had made in one of their kind of meet and greet sessions, and I thought I loved it. I thought it was so great. So that's been made in stencil, and then someone's put the tape from the cassette up there. Maybe they still use cassettes there, I'm not sure. But it was such an incredible experience. But we really were kind of being used as pawns. I mean, it's as much as you can say Simon Crean is supporting local music and all that, at the end of the day, he's sending a bunch of Australian bands over to try and broker some form of cultural agreement between everyone that, oh, Australia's not so bad, and I think everyone felt a little strange about it. But we were getting to travel around India, and you kind of, as I mentioned before, I say yes to a kind of everything, and how can you say no to that? Here we have Carnival there on stage at the Hard Rock Cafe in, I believe, Mumbai, and Ginger Safari, another Australian band who are setting up in front. This is one of the tallest stages you've ever seen. Like, if you were sitting at the front, you were I mean, it's basically where that screen is. You were basically looking up like that. The kind of, their idea of what a venue is a little different to our own. But the middle class there, it is, I mean, prices aren't that different to what we pay here for for a drink at a bar and for a meal at a nice restaurant, the prices are pretty comparable. And I mean, when you go to the music festival, you know, you'd pay 50 cents for like a soft drink or something like that, but then you pay $10 for a beer or anything like that, and the food was cheap, the drinks were expensive. It's amazing how heavily influenced they are by our dollar and our market on that that middle class level. But again, the Australian bands are absolutely huge there. So we had 5 bands. Carnival, as I mentioned, Ginger Safari, who are pictured there, and also here. This was on one of our days off. We got to have 2 days off on our time there. I got there a little late because I got stuck in New York during Hurricane Sandy, so I missed the first 2 days where we had some time off in Delhi. But we still got a little bit of time off. This is 2 members of the third group, Shepherd, who are now ARIA nominated. This is of course ARIA week, so a perfect time to be holding music. Everyone's talking about contemporary Australian music at the moment, and Shepherd are kind of killing it at the moment. They played just up the road last night, and I mean, everyone just had such a great experience and was so well received. This was the whole group here. So it's called Ozfest. It was an offshoot of the Aussie barbecue that I mentioned. We ran 4 events with 5 bands. The other 3 the other 2 being Big Scary and the Aston Shuffle. There I am on the corner. You can see Anuj at the front there, wearing a Pearl Jam shirt. Loves his music, loves his rock music, and it's kind of him that brought me into it all. And Millie Milgate, who's kind of sitting on the far left at the bottom, she runs Sounds Australia. Sounds Australia is the music export office of APRA, which is run by the government, and they run the Aussie barbecue. Basically, if anything happens overseas with Australian bands, they're involved, and it's incredible for bands. As I mentioned, it was kind of like a normal tour. Here we all are at an airport with our gear, and in that respect, it couldn't have been a more normal tour. But then you'd go out and you'd see the poverty, and you'd see the disconnect and the disparity between what we were experiencing and what was reality in that region. And in spite of the burgeoning middle class, and in spite of people being interested in the more contemporary music of the world, that's not changing anything in terms of how badly most people live in that region. And one can only hope and assume that will improve. But what we saw was far from promising. But here we are in the airport, and one thing we did get the opportunity to do, and this is where things started getting a little more unusual for 5 bands on the road. This is in an orphanage in I can't remember where it was. I think it was just out of Mumbai, and it's an all-boy orphanage, and they are kids that have basically just been thrown out of their homes because they have physical problems, they missing a limb, or those sorts of things, and it was an incredibly moving experience. And basically, the Australian bands got to play and got to perform, and I think no band, and myself included, left that orphanage the same. It was as much as it was a strange experience from start to finish. These sorts of things were very, very unique to the experience, and very special. And I really treasure this. And this orphanage has a program called Sound School, and Sound School is run by a couple of Australians. And it's a project where they send music equipment and education to orphanages in Africa and India. And it's a fantastic initiative because, as much as important as food and water and things like that is, everyone in this room knows how much we all take music for granted. I mean, it's part of our everyday lives, but that's not something that can be said for people in these areas. So the fact that they are able to learn music and play music is very, very special, and I think you know, everyone had a great time there, and it was great to kind of see that side of it as much as we were kind of getting looked after because we were part of this government enclave. I'm going to leave this talk with an image. There was something else kind of important that happened while I was there. That was the cover of one of the biggest English-speaking newspapers in India. For those who can't see it, Ababa Wins, Planet Relieved. Of course, the American election happened while we were there, and I was sitting in a hotel room watching live coverage from America, and it's certainly interesting to be on the other side of the world, traveling with a bunch of Australian bands, watching an American election, and I think I was eating, you know, a bacon and egg roll at the time. I mean, it's incredible to see how much Western influence has come into that world, and I think the opportunities for Australian bands have never been better for this region. And you see now Future Music Festival, which of course is a big dance music festival in Australia. They've expanded to the Asian region. Laneway Festivals in the Asian region as well as in America, and the opportunities now for Australian bands in the Asian region just continues to grow every year, and it's very exciting for me to feel a part of it all, and it's very exciting and a very humbling opportunity to get to talk to you about it today. So thank you for having me, and I think, yeah, that's about it for my talk.